Today, I'm here with Bobby Apgar, and he is a survivor. He is so inspiring, and I'm so excited to have him on the podcast. Thanks for coming on, Bobby.
Hello, how are you doing? I'm so excited. I get around to speaking to people, which has been awesome, and I'm never really nervous. And I guess this is kind of like, the first time for instance, first time I went to the first the brain injury convention in Lancaster. And I walked in and I was like, I just started smiling. I was like in a room with a whole bunch of people like me. And it was just so good to just feel like people understood me. Like I didn't anymore have to say, hey, do you get it? But people just had a true understanding, like a true empathy. It was just awesome. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited and I'm a little nervous, but
Oh,
I'm ready. I'm
it's
ready.
going to
I'm
be
ready to
great.
go. Yes,
So
yes,
I
I'm
know
good. I'm good.
Bobby in person. Bobby is part of our brain injury support group that I've been a part of locally and the Brain Injury Association of Pennsylvania conference, which is what he was just referring to. And so I've gotten to know Bobby through the years a little bit, and I'm really excited for him to get to share his story with all of you today. And I love what you were just saying about being around other survivors, being around other people in the brain injury community. It really makes a huge difference.
That really was so like so these last several years and you'll learn more about it. These last several years has been like a whole revival to me, but was very instrumental in my whole development was finally accepting the fact that I have some deficiencies and there's some underlying reasons as to why things may be happening the way they are. Not to say that that's the main focus, but it definitely has a contributing factor as the my behaviors, and I needed to get in touch with that. And the first way to get in touch with that was for me to accept it. So I needed to get involved. And me, that was my first step of getting involved and just jumping in and being like, you know what? I'm in a room with people like me. And it just became that much more easier for me to just talk about it then. And it was so, I don't really know how to explain it. And I don't want to sound corny, but it was so liberating. It was just like freed me of everything that was maybe hindering me and just total transparency and just being like, yo, giving it up and being like, yo, this is what it is. And it was just like, and the more I say it, the more I want to say it more. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm feeling like it's liberating me even more. But not only is it liberating me, maybe I'm helping some others out that are out there that are maybe trying to hide it or don't want to feel as though it's hindering their progress. And it is, and it will continue to hinder your progress, and it will continue to hinder your progress even more the more you keep it inside, and the more you try to hide it, and the more you try to say, okay, no, not me. I'm not going to be that person. You are that person. We are, and we are all that person. And it's true what they say, it's the invisible disease. And how nobody can see. At the conference I told somebody, if you could see my brain, it'd be on crutches or in a wheelchair. Like there's like I'm
Yeah.
not sometimes I'm not right. Like I have my good days and my bad days. Like my brain is like an addict. All right, I always use this analogy. It's like an addict, and in my attic, you have all kind of you have loose debris. And I have the windows open. The windows are open, and some days the wind is going to be blowing moderately, not much at all. Some days wind's not going to blow, not even nothing. But some days there's going to be a hurricane outside, and that debris is going to be going around, and that debris is my brain. Some days I just have moments where I just need to be by myself, and I need to like it just happened. It just happened last week, last Wednesday or Thursday. I called off work, and I went in the next day. They said, "Is everything okay?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I just needed like a me day. I needed a day where I'm not so overwhelmed with something." What did you
Yeah.
do? Nothing. I spent time with my mother. I went and I paid bill. I cooked dinner like a real person. I felt, and I was by myself. And sometimes I've learned what relaxes me. Everyone has their own way to get into that comfort zone and into their own place and whatever it is. And for me that day, it was me just being with my mother, or me being here, or me being by myself, or me reading, or me just feeling like I'm human again and making dinner and
Mm.
doing laundry. You know what I'm like? I
Yeah,
needed
that's so good, Bobby.
but I needed to break. But see, here's the thing: is I needed to break the monotony
Yeah.
of getting up, going to work, boom, boom, boom. Like you gotta. I needed to break that monotony a little
Mhm.
bit and just loosen
Yeah.
it up to be like I'm not feeling like I'm a robot or like I'm programmed to do something. I mean, everyone, I don't like when we share our issues or our problems, and then we have the people's that are trying to be empathetic and that are trying to be caring. Oh yeah, me too. No, it's not the same. It's not the same. Like, no, you forget your keys. Yeah, you forget, but you don't constantly, you have to remind yourself and then get aggravated when you forget it or go outside and it's too bright. And then you have to turn back around and nobody understands why you're aggravated or why you're frustrated. And you just they don't get it. And I don't, and it's, so I totally understand like why we are. And one of the biggest things for people with traumatic brain injuries are that we're just agitated and we get frustrated, and people don't understand why, because in our minds and in our brains we're constantly going through it. Like I fight with my alter ego every day. We argue every day. Matter of fact, we're arguing now because he wants me to talk about something different, but I'm just saying it's a constant battle. It's constant.
Yeah, that's so good, Bobby. Thanks for sharing all that. And I'm sure, have survivors that are listening that totally understand. I want to kind of backtrack a little bit to your saying that you had to learn how to accept your brain injury.
Yeah.
So, what was that journey of learning how to accept your injury like?
Ooh, it was very humbling. It was a very humbling experience because I was forced to be honest with myself, and being honest with yourself and looking at it as being it's not only humbling, it's just being, wow, like this is really where I'm at. And it took a lot. Like I put myself in counseling. I went to Good Shepherd, and I wanted a counselor that specifically dealt with people with traumatic brain injuries, because it's a frustration and it's an aggravation, and it's the invisible disease. And I wanted somebody to be familiar with that. So when I was going through counseling, they can have a general empathy and understanding of what it was for people like us. So Good Shepherd recommended an awesome counselor, and I wanted her, and I was trying to be as transparent, as honest as I can be, to get into learning and to accept the fact that I have a brain injury, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like I was in a car accident, 2 people passed away. I was in a coma for a month. I went through an intensive cognitive therapy in order to walk and talk again. Like I should be proud of all my accomplishments. I was able to go back to school and graduate, then go on to get a master's degree. And it's like, so there's so much that I've overcome that I shouldn't have to be proud of, to be like, okay, well, this happened and that happened, but it is what it is. Like I'm still like, I had to just get in touch with a lot of my emotions, and they really helped me through that. So you talk about the progress. I look at everything as a process, and that was part of the process. And me accepting my brain injury was me just to get in touch with some of my emotions
Mm, that's so good.
and how I felt about it, because I was a, the audience doesn't know, but I went to school on an athletic scholarship to play football, and I had got my to a point where I was getting some national recognition. I was a preseason All-American at a Division I level. That's pretty good. So I I'm not saying I would have been a first round draft pick. I'm not going there, and I'm not trying to give that narrative. But I had potential to play, to keep playing. In saying that, that was what I always just held on to. So, and me accepting that I was handicapped in some way was not easy for me to accept.
So, before your brain injury, you were like a star athlete.
Yes.
Everyone knew who you were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, can you actually share like what happened when you had your TBI?
Yeah, so it was crazy. I just told this story. I just told the story yesterday. As a matter of fact, I gave a speech at Wagner College, and I gave it to the football guys, and shared my story in hopes that it would help some of the student athletes. So it worked. So the way it is, we were playing. It was during the season. So we had a bye week. We were 7 games into the season. Team was doing awesome. We were tied for first in the division. Me personally, I was doing really well. I was coming sophomore year. I was coming off an all conference year, all New England, all ECA, all different conferences. So going into my junior season, I received some national recognition. I was a preseason All-American going into the season, and so everything was on a high. Everything was riding high. We had just come off a game where we were in a driving rainstorm, and we go down and we win, and the student body runs into the field, and everybody's jumping around and pouring down rain. It was crazy. So everything was electric. So we're heading into a bye week, and my friend, I live in Easton, Pennsylvania. So every game we play is on Friday night except one time a year. So we just so happened to be playing on a Saturday. My friend lived in New Jersey, Hackensack, New Jersey. His team was playing on Friday. And, us being college guys, we're always arguing about what high school is better. So now this was the opportune time to catch our teams. And it's at the height of my career. So everyone was, okay, this guy's coming home. So I had made arrangements to talk to the media and all these people.
So you were in college and you went back
Yes.
to visit your high school.
I went back to visit. I was coming home for the weekend, but before we got to my game on Saturday, we were going to stop in New Jersey.
Got it.
At his high school, at Hackensack High School, and watch a football game. That was going to be Friday night, and then Saturday we're going down to Easton, Pennsylvania, which is like an hour and a half ride. So Friday night, boom, we go down. Everything's cool. We go down, watch the game. None of this I don't remember, but as you'll know why. And then we can't do things smalls. We couldn't just watch the game, go home, chill, and then go out. I mean, then go to Pennsylvania the next day. But no, we had to go out in New York City. We're in New York City after the game, late hours. His friend that was driving lost control of the car, and we crashed, and 2 people passed away. So my friend passed away, and another guy in the car passed away. And then there was me and the driver that survived. Last I heard, he didn't recover as well, and he was with a walker, and was really still going through cognitive therapy. So, but I haven't gotten an update on him as of recently. Myself, I was in a coma for side of the road, no vital signs, and all the things that we go through. And I had a fractured C7 in my neck. Was in a coma, got out, went through intensive cognitive therapy. The following year, went back to college. Went back to college, and as I went back to college, see, there wasn't that many resources as there were back in 1996. So I kind of was like thrown to the wolves, like, all right, go live. But I had all these things still I was dealing with. And I had went back to school. I had gotten someone pregnant. I was living with them. We were living together. I lost my friend. My grandmother, which was like the matriarch of the family, she passed away. I was on the verge of failing out of school, and I had a kid on the way. All these paradigms in my brain. So my brain injury became not an issue because I had a kid on the way. I had to get prepared for that. And I had to graduate school. So everything was always more important than dealing with me. So throughout the years, it was just trauma on trauma on trauma on trauma on top of the origin and the base of it, so, the basis of where it was coming from. So that's why that counseling, talked about my brain injury, but that was all instrumental in me getting just to the root and to the origin of what it was. And it was what happened to me in 1995. I mean, I was in we struggle. A lot of us still struggle with the PTSD, and I'm wondering why all these things are so prevalent in my life, and because I wasn't in touch with it, and I wasn't dealing with it, and I wasn't dousing that flame. So that therapy was so cool for me. And you know what? And then COVID broke out. So I only got like a year and a half of peeling that onion back, but there's still some work left. And I'm like super excited to like just get back in there and just go to work on me. This whole process is just going to work on us. And it's so hard. It's so hard, Christabel. It's so hard anymore for people to just spend time, especially us, because our time frames are just so segmented.
We have limited energy.
Yes, yes.
Limited time that our brains are actually feeling okay. And what are you going to spend that energy on? You know, if you have to do chores, you have to do shopping, you have to do something that has to be done, you know, you don't
Yeah.
really have much energy from your brain left over.
Yes, and we don't, and that's why too, like even like things that we accomplish, like going back to grad school, and like not to say that's a it's a big deal. I'm not saying it like that, but to me it is because it's a whole memory thing. Like grad school is grad school for a reason. It's hard, and it's a lot of reading and comprehension and writing and a lot of things that we deal with on a daily basis. Like to retain all that information, it's a lot of information you need to retain. So somebody has to maybe study a day. I have to study three. You know, I don't have to study. I have to write it down. I have to visually, auditory, headphones, see it, and just constantly just be all over the place. Little stickies. It's not as easy for me or
Yeah, you
for
have to
us.
use your coping strategies
Yes.
actively. Yeah,
Yes.
and there's the process of acceptance in order to even get to the place where you're even willing to use those kinds of strategies. You know, I think that it with the invisible injury, you talked about that and mentioned it a couple times. One of the things that I don't know if it's talked about as much with brain injury is that it's even invisible to us. So you can look in the mirror and think, why do I feel like this? I look fine, you know? And we always talk about how other people judge us and think that we look a certain way or we look fine from our injury. But I think it can even affect ourselves.
Wow, I never. You know what, man? You just give me like a self-analyzation period there, and it made me like really think about it. And I think that's true, and I think that's at times why I get so frustrated with myself because I'm like, I'm, I know I'm fit enough. I know I'm bright enough. I know I'm um, articulate enough. I know why can't I get it? Why can't I get it? And it's so frustrating because sometimes to myself I get that I feel that way. And you're right, because I forget sometimes because we ourselves we have daily obstacles and daily goals that we set and we overcome. So we're so consumed with that we forget about that we are yeah that we do have something a
Hmm.
reason why yeah so
And it's so easy to just kind of move forward and not really address the symptoms from the injury and address the residual things that you know you were talking about. So after your brain injury, you kind of just pushed yourself through for many
yeah.
years before you even came back around to realizing how deeply the brain injury affected you. So what was the journey like on kind of realizing that this TBI was a big part of your life?
I was drinking a lot, and I got a DUI, and I was like, okay, not a big deal, whatever. Got another DUI, okay, not a big deal, whatever. Still, it looked as though I was doing good. I was working with the IU, and I was coaching. I was coaching sports. I was coaching at local high schools. I was coaching at my local high school, and then other high schools in the district. And I was fairly well. I was doing well at coaching. I was coaching football and I was coaching track. And it started getting to the point where I was doing really well, and I was like, you know what? This is something I want to do. So I went to university to get certified to be a health and physical education teacher. But it got to be a point, but like a hindrance because I wasn't able I wasn't able to sustain my successes. You know, like I would get lucky. I'm not lucky. No, I'm not going to say that. Everyone gets lucky and wins the lottery. Like I was winning, I would win, but I couldn't sustain my successes. And I was good just on a roller coaster. It was on highs and it was on a constant seriously, Chris, but I was on the highs and lows. And I was like, yo, I got to get a hold of this. Like, you know, and then I was getting another DUI. And then I went to prison. And then I went to jail. And they did me it was I mean although it's legal it doesn't mean because they never took certain things into consideration, this being one of them, and I got overlooked that way, and then I feel as though things were just that's another legality issue I won't even get into, but it just wasn't right. Just because slavery was legal doesn't mean it was fair. And honestly. And what they did was they didn't have to do what they did, and it was over excessive. So I was dealing with that, and I was just like, then I got another DUI. I got 5 DUIs, Chris, 5, and I was in prison, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't. Like, you talk about, maximizing potential and being the best version of yourself, and I just knew the best version of me wasn't here. And I started thinking about my legacy. Like, I've always been known as like the star and a great athlete, but it was that narrative was starting to change, and I was starting to be viewed different, and it was starting to be like, oh, people were feeling sorry for me because my that bad accident I was in, or you know what I mean? And I was just like, yo, that's not me. And so I was like, I gotta get a hold of this. And I just stopped drinking. I went back to school. I finished my master's. And even that was a process, just humbling myself and going back through that process. I didn't know how to do it and how to go about it. And because I was in grad school in 2000. I don't know if you know this, but this is kind of cool. I was in grad school in 2000. And at the culmination of grad school, at the end of grad school, you had to take a comprehensive exam. Um, I failed my comps, and so I never went back and did it. I didn't go back and do it because I told you, I had mentioned before, I was coaching, I was working like teaching, and then I went back and I was going to be a health and phys ed teacher. I didn't even want to deal with special ed anymore. So then it just got to be a point, and then I went to jail. I was in and out of jail, and I just thought it was a lost cause, but I promised myself that I was gonna pursue that. And I called my undergraduate dean. First of all, who can call the undergraduate dean? I think that's a testament of like just our relationship that we had, and that's just awesome. And I knew I was gonna have to be transparent with him, and he just kept asking me why didn't I go back, and I said I made some bad decisions, and I told him I've been in jail, and he said you've been to prison, and then he said a prayer for me, and the next day he called me up and said, okay, this is who you want to talk to. And it was the head of grad school. And then they put me in the head of the program. And then they said, listen to this. Then they said, all you have to do is come back and take the exam, which is crazy. It was 20 years. I thought I was going to have to take at least 15 credits, at least 3 classes, 9 credits. They just said, come back and take the exam. What? What? So here I am ordering books off of Amazon and open them up at night, and already are hindrance. So I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I can't how am I going to retain all this information? Anyway, make a long story short, ended up taking the exam, failed, and then I'm like, like, here we go again. Here I am again. And you know what happens when you fail, or when you keep failing, and this happens with us a lot because we fail, it starts creating pockets of insecurities. And then you start thinking, like, you know what, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this wasn't. Then you start talking yourself out of things. And I've talked myself out of too much. And I was like, I'm not talking myself out of this one. I'm going to get this done. So I failed. He called me up. He said, do you want to take it again? I said, yes. He said, okay. He said, what about tomorrow? I said, let's go. Boom. He gave me the test, and I passed. You know what I mean? But it was just like, I'm not stopping. You know what I mean? And that
Wow.
was just, and yeah, it was just so, it was
What
just,
an inspiration. I didn't know that
yeah,
part of your story, Bobby. I didn't know that.
yeah,
That's
that's
so
how,
cool. You went back and you passed because you didn't give up.
yeah, 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 yeah. I want to start from the beginning though. And this is what I'm saying though. But had I not, but this was part of the whole revival of me. It was like, but it wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have been vulnerable. And me being vulnerable, and me asking for help, and then me not only that, but me accepting things in my life, and it was accepting my brain injury. Like, yo, listen, I needed to do that, but that was all part of the catalyst to bring me where I'm at. And this is why that is so instrumental. Like, I just didn't just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Like, this was a thought out plan, and I went about it. And I wasn't going to just be like, okay, I didn't come this far to just come this far. Like, that's crazy. Like, what? Like I opened myself up. So now, okay, I failed the test. So now I'm good. Like, no, give it to me. Let's go.
Well, by accepting your brain injury, you were able to incorporate strategies and coping mechanisms and even improve your physical and mental health because you were able to treat the symptoms of the brain injury the way that they should be treated instead of
Yes.
just trying to push yourself through.
Yes, yes. And I was
So it
very
opened up
transparent.
more doors.
And I was even transparent with the university. And I was like, listen, I said, part of the reason why I failed the exam before was because of the time constraints. Because the exam it's time. You have 7 core classes, and you have the exam, and every exam is different, but you have to answer the questions, and you have time, an hour a question. That's hard for me. I couldn't do an hour, like I couldn't do that. And back then it was they threw a blue book at me, and I'm filling up blue books, and I'm like, I can't, like I need it was just too much. And then the pressure of me trying to finish, and kept looking at the time, it just got to be chaotic. And then I was just all my anxiety kicked in, and then I'm going, and I just was a mess. And I knew, so just that whole torture that day is sweating. I mean, sweating you could see it. You know what I'm saying? Like the sweating, the anxiety, and then the anxiety of waiting for a month for the results to come back
Yeah.
was just enough for me to never, for 20 years, to never do it again. And then 20 years later, with a brain injury, jumping back in and just saying, I want to take the test again. But I didn't know how to do it. So I called my undergraduate dean, and he hooked it up. I take it, and it was just so, I couldn't stop there. Like if I would have said, okay, I did all that and didn't pass, why you tell the rest of the story? So I had to finish it off by saying, let's go. And it's just, and at that point, Carissa, like anymore, when I accomplish great feats, seriously, I'm serious. I don't feel like it's not only for me. I feel it's all for us. Like we're beating it. Like we're beating this monster. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a monster.
Yeah.
And like, that's how I look at it. Like we're going to battle.
Were you able to get accommodations this time?
Yes.
With
Yes.
so
Yes.
you, because you had your TBI, you had your diagnosis, you had your
Yes.
documentation, you had your
Yes.
neuropsychologist,
Yes.
you were able
Yes.
to
As a matter
get
of
extended time on your test
as
this
a,
time.
Yes, and that was all with transparency, because I was transparent about it.
That's so good. And that's part of accepting the brain injury. If you hadn't accepted it, you would never have gone there.
I never would have passed. So I went back to Good Shepherd. They wrote me a nice letter. My neuropsychiatrist, everything was written. I had that documentation from my counselor, from the hospital, showing my deficiencies. I took a neurological exam, so all that was documented. So it was, but I never would have got those accommodations had I not been honest.
Yeah. So good. That's so good. That's such a good message.
Yeah. So just be transparent about it and
I
honest. And
love it.
now it's cool. Like the first 5 minutes of me talking to somebody, I'm like, hey, listen, I gotta have a brain injury. So if I repeat myself a lot, it's more like as an echo. So don't get offended or don't think I'm crazy. I just do.
I actually say the same thing to people, Bobby, because when I repeat myself, I have to tell people, especially like friends or like new people that I'm becoming friends with, like, I'm not repeating it because I think you didn't understand. Sometimes I just have to say it again in order for my brain to process what I'm saying.
Yes.
Because I would notice that like people would be like, I get it. You don't need to say it again. Like they would think that I thought they didn't get it. And
Yeah.
by advocating for myself and disclosing the brain injury, it opens up the ability to have better relationships too.
Yes, it really
Yeah.
does. I'm so glad you said that too, because I feel like before I was like so transparent about my brain injury, I was like sabotaging every relationship I was going into, because I knew inevitably there was going to be something was going to go down. You know what I'm saying? Like something, like I was going to have an off day or something. And I'm not talking about like relationships, like, you know what I'm saying, being with someone else. And I'm talking about like with
Yeah. Friends,
my
anybody,
boss, my
coworkers.
friend,
Yeah.
coworker. Yeah, like
Anybody that you interact with.
yes, all my interactions.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, and that was sometimes like I would prevent myself from getting close to that person because I knew in past relationships, like I can't tell you how many of like relationships that maybe I have lost throughout the years, and some of that is just because of whatever, you move or you go this way, you go that way, or adults. But some of them were because of things maybe that I burned some bridges. You know what I mean? And I know that now, and I got to live with that. But it wasn't it wasn't done intentionally. It wasn't done for something like it was. And for whatever reason, if there was something said, if there was something done, you know what I mean? You know this, and I see you shaking your head because I'm sure you the same thing
Yeah.
throughout your life. And I
Yeah,
don't
for
know how to.
sure. I mean, sometimes it's like I don't even know why somebody's upset with
Yeah,
me. I don't even know
yeah,
why. Like
yeah.
I've had different experiences over the years where people have kind of stepped back or like not wanted to be my friend anymore or kind of cut me out and I never understood why because they're people I really 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 cared about.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's like, did I annoy them? Probably. And I don't know what it was and I don't know why. Maybe I had a memory loss thing and I don't know. And it's hard, but I think that we have more success in life when we come to a place where we see and we're able to advocate for our needs and advocate for ourselves in relationships and also have the humility to say, hey, I do have some of these uh, deficits and how can I work on improving them? How can I work on moving forward? That's what we talk about in Hope Survives podcast is tangible hope. What are things I can do to improve my recovery every day? And this perspective shift, this mindset shift, this learning how to accept our brain injury is a huge part of it. And a hurdle that I had to go through on learning to accept my brain injury was realizing that accepting that I had a TBI and that I had some struggles from it, it doesn't mean that I'm giving up on improving and healing. It just means that I can look at myself honestly where I am today and say, hey, these are some areas that I'm struggling with, but I'm still going to hope and move forward and look for treatments and try and help myself to get better. I'm not going to give up and stay here, but I do need to accept that I am here right now.
I love that. And I just had a conversation last week with my boss, what led me to like that day where I just said I had to have a mental health day, where I had a day where I had to relax because we were having some issues at work. And I'm a supervisor, and I did something, I set a time that wasn't consistent. And he asked me, we just talked about this, a few hours before. Why would you set a time when we talked about it already? And I was like, I forgot. He was like, I know, you've been honest, but you didn't write it down. I was like, I know I didn't write it down because I carry around my notebook all the time. I was like, it was simple. Like I remembered it then, and I knew that I could remember it, but I don't know why I forgot. And he couldn't understand that. And I just got so frustrated. And I was just like, listen, man. He was like, well, how do I know? I was like, this may happen again. Like I don't know what to say to you. I don't know. I'm sorry. I had no malicious intent. It wasn't something that was meant to be. Like, I forgot. These are the struggles. You're frustrated right now, but these are the daily struggles that I deal with on a daily basis. And you try to tell me you too, but you see, not you too, because nobody would have forgot that. You just told me, but I forgot. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to
And you
tell you.
have your coping strategy of your notebook, but for some reason you just didn't happen to write it down that time.
Yeah,
And so, yeah,
because because
I mean,
that's us.
that's
Because
hard.
that's
Yeah.
us telling ourselves again that we're okay and that we don't need that. And it's just a simple time. You just told me I don't need to write it down. Stop telling me to write everything down. You know what I mean? Everybody's always telling me, why do you think I don't need this anymore? I'm better. And us telling, playing that mind trick on ourselves again that we're not we're okay, we're functionable. That's where all that came into play. And he didn't understand that, and I couldn't explain it to him, and it was frustrating. So my way of telling him was just to be like, listen, coping mechanism is it's going to happen again. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't. I don't. Honestly, I don't know what to tell you. Somehow, some way, it won't be a big thing, but it's going to
Yeah.
happen again. Get used to
Yeah.
it.
I really appreciate your sharing that story and being so open, because I know some of our listeners are going to be able to relate to that, because our how we accept our brain injury, how we communicate our brain injury to others, it affects our relationships, it affects everything. And it's hard, and every situation's different, every injury's different. Every day we might have different symptoms. So one day I might remember things, the next day I might not. So it's hard for us to navigate, and it takes a lot of grace for ourselves and for the people around us. So I really think I really appreciate you sharing that. We are
Yeah.
running towards the end of our conversation today. So the last question I always ask everyone is, what are your final words of hope for our listeners today? So what kind of hope and encouragement would you want to leave our brain injury survivors, caregivers, community, family members, anyone listening?
I wanted to say that one of the key things in my acceptance was just knowing and just feeling as though just because we're different doesn't make doesn't make you feel, don't feel as though you're less than. Um, I lived with a lot of insecurities, a lot, and I still do, and my memory being one of them. And maybe that's why I react the way I did, to some way of being like it's going to happen again. It's so frustrating with our memories, but I think that's my way now of coping, of just of accepting it and telling myself and others that I'm sorry, I'm working. I work every day. There's not a day that I take off, and that's one thing about us. We can't just not quit going to work and finish up and accept the fact that, okay, you have a brain injury, so this is my fate, and then just sit back and watch TV. That's we just got to go to work extra harder and show that how much stronger and willpower we do have, and believe that we're gonna be better, and believe that we can live normal lives just like everyone else, and that we're loved and accepted. And I'm just so psyched and happy to be an advocate for us, and I'm just looking forward to just being around us more, and just sharing this thing that you have going on, Chris Bell, with just hope and just awareness. And the more that we talk about it, the more recognized it's going to be, and so it won't be the invisible disease anymore, and we'll get more recognition, and some more resources will be available for us. So, thank you very
That's
much.
great. Thanks so much, Bobby. If
Yeah.
anyone wants to get in touch with you, is there a way that they can do that?
Yeah, so we just, which you need to view also. You got to view my testimonial on YouTube. So we put together that, and my web page we're in the process of putting up a web page. Christopher, I'll shoot to you my YouTube,
Sounds
my
good.
testimony.
I'll put the links in the show notes for everyone then.
Yeah, and then we're gonna do something. So the web page is coming up soon. We're getting some things together, but it's going to be awesome. So I'm really looking forward to it.
That's great, Bobby. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and speaking with all of us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.